Has it finally come? Fidel is dead. I pray this is the beginning of a free and democratic Cuba. Wish my abuelo and abuela were alive to see this. The Lieutenant Governor joins me now from Miami, and he is, by the way, the first Cuban American to hold the office. Good to see you, sir.
Good evening, Arthel. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Lieutenant Governor, unfortunately, your grandparents are not here to see this. If you wouldn't mind, though, sharing your personal reaction to this news.
Well, you know, for decades, it seemed like every 3, 6, 8 months, there'd be a rumor that would go around Miami of the death of Fidel, and within a short time, the Cuban government would trot him out and prove that he was still alive. I think the news last night caught a lot of folks here in this community and around the world, I think, by surprise. You know, the dictator's dead, but the dictatorship lives on, and there are people still suffering in Cuba right now.
Yeah, people still suffering in Cuba right now. And as you know, Raul Castro is saying that he's not going to step down until 2018. You know, so I ask you, with the Castro regime still in place, is it possible for a systemic change that would truly benefit the people of Cuba?
Well, that's the hope. Unfortunately, in late 2014, President Obama granted all kinds of concessions to Cuba with nothing in return for the Cuban people. No democracy, no changes in human rights. As a matter of fact, since the changes Obama put in place, there have been more oppression, more arrests, more abuse of dissidents, more human rights violations. There's been reports that I've read today about dissidents being rounded up and taken to undisclosed locations in anticipation of this news being released.
And how would you like President-elect Trump to proceed once he takes office in terms of policy, in terms of diplomacy? And would you want the voices of the Cuban Americans living in your state to be heard? Oh,
absolutely. And I'd very much like the voices of the dissidents, the pro-democracy movement on the island, their voices to be heard. And whatever President-elect Trump pursues in his administration as it relates to Cuba, I hope it's with those individuals, the pro-democracy movement in mind, and not the Castro government, whether it be Fidel or now Raul.
And after Raul Castro steps down, can you foresee a democratic Cuba?
Well, that's what we'd like to see. They have plans in place on the island. They were very prepared for the news that they announced today, and they have an iron fist grip on every neighborhood in that island, and that's how they've been able to control it for over 55 years because of this iron fist grip that they have there. So it's going to take some tough policy decisions on the United States of America's part. I look forward to being part of any conversation and being helpful in any way possible because, you know, I'm the son and grandson of Cuban exiles. I grew up in this community in Miami, listening to the stories from my grandfather and my grandmother and how they escaped the island and escaped prison, actually, because they were able to get out. My grandmother's brothers, 2 of them were not so lucky. They were political prisoners for many years.
It's really horrendous and horrible stories and difficult to listen to. Quickly, before I let you go, sir, just talk about the economics of it. I mean, already you've got the flights going into Cuba. They're going to be adding more flights, daily flights from the U.S. to Cuba in a couple of days. And I'm reading reports of local businesses there actually being able to start, small businesses being able to start up. Are you hopeful that that will continue?
Well, the problem is that the 51% partner of any foreign company that is doing business in Cuba is the military and the government. And if whatever contract you have with them, there's no due process, so it's unenforceable. It's unfortunate that President Obama didn't take a look at history when he put his policies into place, because all it did was create an economic stimulus via tourism dollars for the island, and it's helped them to strengthen their hold.
Do you think, quickly, do you think Donald Trump, once he becomes President Trump, can change that?
I'd like to see that. He said it during the campaign. I was at the event that he did at the Bay of Pigs Museum here in Little Havana. I'm hopeful that he will be pursuing those policies like he talked about during the campaign. I know that he's picked some folks for his transition team that are well versed on the issue. Mauricio Claver of the Capitol Hill Cubans is one of them. I'm very happy to see his selection on the transition team, and it gives me hope that the Trump administration will pursue a free and democratic Cuba.
Lieutenant Governor Carlos Lopez-Cantera, I thank you so much for being with us here this evening, sir.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.